I'm going to start the meeting. She knows what to do. Are we ready? Is that okay? Right then. So, Richard, are we ready? Okay, so welcome to the Shareholders Committee meeting on Monday, the 31st of October. You've got myself, Councillor Paula Woodson, Councillor de Gorn. We have
Councillor Claire Douglas.
Patrick Lucker, CYC Finance.
Louise Court, the Democracy Officer.
Okay, so we have the agenda in front of us, which I will go through now. So we've got declarations of interest. I have no declarations of interest, Andy.
No additional declarations. No.
Yeah. Right. The minutes I've read, I couldn't find any errors. So not even any spelling ones. So absolutely, they're fine. Do I need to sign them now or at the end? Perfect. Okay, thank you. We've all read the papers. We don't believe that we will be going to the areas where we need to exclude press or public. So we don't think that's an issue this evening, which makes everything a lot easier and more sensible. I've just looked at this room. I feel like I'm at the front in mass. You guys are all sat at the back. Okay, and we then move on to public participation. We do have one public speaker, but I don't know whether she's been delayed or is waiting to come in. Gwen Swinburne, but she's not turned up, so I'm going to move the meeting on. Okay, so the first piece of business is to bring Sandy to the table, who can give us an update on Yorwaste. Welcome, Sandy.
Thanks, Jim. So got my normal boilerplate in there. I'll be a second. Yeah, I'll just start off with the normal boilerplate in terms of how we deliver our sort of shareholder value. Yes, this is cut and paste from the previous one, but I think it's important that people understand that it's not all just about profit. In fact, it's about reducing your costs, and it's also about the other benefits that we bring to the shareholder via its investment part and the intangibles that we bring in terms of some of the advice and additional services that we provide with the normal TECO sort of arrangement. As previously requested, we've agreed and finalised our public accounts. Those have been submitted to Companies House and a copy was submitted. Do you have any questions on those?
I don't have any questions on the accounts. I've got some general questions later on.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. One comment I would make about the accounts, they're clear and they're easy to read. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. In terms of our current performance, I think the last time I was here, there was a bit of a doom and gloom about what was happening looking forward to with the way inflation was going and the way that fuel costs were going. That hasn't really reversed, but what we have had is a bit more of an upside on our landfill gas revenues, which has helped offset some of the additional costs arising from the fuel. Combined, we've also had some recycling contracts that sit outside the TECO within the commercial part, which have been sort of quite lucrative in the current year. The combination of those two mean that we're now sort of trending ahead of budget, but we've got probably heavier cost ones going forward. We will need to look to do something in terms of staff costs. Obviously, the Living Wage Foundation's just published its increase, so we'll need to look to transition towards that before its cut-off date of the end of May. So we'll need to look to do something there for staff. And likewise, we've still got very high costs, specifically in terms of our diesel costs this current year, where we're running well above our original budgeted rates. But I'm probably a lot more optimistic about where we are than I would have been 6 months ago. In terms of our governance and our best practice, we had quite a few sort of attempts to hack our network. This seems to be quite a common thing out there in businesses as a whole. We've put in place and attained Cyber Essentials Plus certification, which shows that we've got all of the recommendations. I think it's one of the government agencies that sort of recommends what you need as the minimum. So we're meeting that, but in some respects, that's a never-ending job because every single month that goes past, there's another requirement. So we're constantly having to review that. We've gone above the minimum requirement for this, and we've also engaged a company to do a penetration test. That's about getting somebody to actually a friendly hacker to see where they can get into it. So we've gone through that process, and we've identified a couple of areas that just needed tightened up. Those have now been done. We've put in place something whereby you cannot access our network from IPs outside of the UK, because nobody who works for us should be anywhere overseas. You know, sort of in theory, if I wanted to access it when I was on holiday, I'd need to have given them what the IP address was. They would have opened it up temporarily for me to access it, and then they would have closed it down after my account. What that does is it's a very good barrier to the vast bulk of them, which are overseas, and they come from a whole host of countries, although strangely enough, not a lot from Russia, which was rather bizarre. But we keep that under constant review. The other thing that we have done following your request, as we got the Good Business Charter accreditation. I think we were your first investment company to do so. And we have a couple of relatively minor areas that we need to sort of follow up with them, which we're in the process of doing now. But most of that, we'd already been compliant on that requirement. In terms of our sort of climate change, the big challenges that we've got in terms of the real prize would have been massive solar installation on Harewood. Putting it in is not an issue. Funding it, from what we understand from both shareholders, they're keen to support it. The big challenge that we've got is access to the grid. And that is just proving to be very difficult, A, to get a straight answer, B, to actually find the person who's supposed to be giving you the straight answer. And there just seems to be a constant battle to find out what's needed to be done and what's the timescale. If this is typical of what's happening throughout the UK as a whole, which I believe it is, then you can sort of see a situation whereby a lot of the aims and objectives of the green revolution for the UK are actually, in some respects, it's difficult to see how they would be achievable within the current sort of grid infrastructure. And I understand that there's no immediate plans to upgrade Poppleton beyond what they've currently got, which is where we would be looking to go into. I think to talk about 5-year schedules, which basically means we could be looking at somewhere in 2030 before it's able to take the capacity. Now, we keep this under review, but there is a company that has secured some space on that grid point. It is also going through planning in order to get a solar sort of site put up. I don't know what happens, in all honesty, if they weren't able to get that, what happens to that capacity? Because every time I've tried to get a straight answer from the grid, it just seems to be very difficult to get some conclusions from that. But we will continue to keep it under review. We are in the process of putting in an application, a pre-application for it. And I think what we've sort of concluded is that there's some opportunities to put in some off-grid solar and we need to then work out how we might be able to maximize that. But what we want to do is to establish the planning permission for it, and then it's there ready to go at some point when that grid connection is going, rather than wasting more time further down the road. So that's a great opportunity that is just being somewhat frustrated by opportunities beyond our control. We are looking at other things in terms of what we might be able to do. The idea of electrification of some of our plant, right? Once again, we've got another problem whereby the amount of power that we need requires significant upgrades of our electric inputs. So not forget about exporting power, bringing into the site to be able to do some of the high power sites is incredibly expensive, to the point where at the moment we're struggling to see how it can be a sustainable business case. We're doing a little bit more analysis to what we might be able to do in terms of effectively almost in-house load shedding, where if we switch that off and that off, can we switch that on? And therefore trying to balance our load on site. So that's what we're trying to model at the moment. But I think once again, the idea of the big opportunity to sort of electrify most of our fixed plant is problematic due to the availability of power on site, and the retrofitting costs are incredibly expensive. One of the other things we're looking at is, I mean, we continually talk about what can we do for vehicles. First thing we need to do is we need to bring in the subcontracted subcontracted fuel footprint so that we can know the full picture, because the easiest way for us to reduce our fuel is to subcontract more, which actually sort of defeats the public purpose. So we're now in the process of bringing that in as a scope 3 measure so that we get the full idea as to what our baseline is, and then we need to look to see what we can do about that going forward. Ultimately, that's about looking at the cost of the fuel per ton that is used to move things around, and that's about being efficient in the network. The network is efficient, But there are things that happen from time to time, such as if Allen Park has an unexpected closure, we need to drive much further, therefore incur more fuel to move the same amount of waste. So what we need to do is to put all that together and start to identify what can we actually manage. But I'm fairly comfortable that we've got Eurocat 6 vehicles. I think Eurocat 7 has been put on hold, but if and when it comes to part, we then look to move to Eurocat 7. At some point in the future, there will be a hydrogen / electric version, which is capable for large vehicles. It is just not there at this moment in time, and our company sort of can't afford to invest in trialing that out. We just don't have those resources. What we do is we sort of piggyback on what the authority has been doing with its investments in electric vehicles to see some of the opportunities, costs and challenges that they have in operating those. And we work with the authority on that very closely. We've been doing some work with University of York, or York University, and FERA, Food Environment Research Agency, and we're looking at everything from bug reactors all the way through to potential heat recovery from the leachate that we're sort of putting out. Some of those may or may not be commercially viable, but they're all at the early stage, so it's a bit too early to sort of say what might come through. But we're exploring lots of interesting things. One of the things that we think that we're interested to pursue with them, and they're trying to sort of secure some funding, is different types of bugs to accelerate the decomposition of waste, which can then improve the gas, but also ones where some of the bugs can potentially start to eat the plastics that are sitting within the landfill. So we'll look at that over time and see what those opportunities have, and we'll look to tap into those. I sort of already sort of given you an idea about the look forward in terms of the finances, which is I'm more optimistic about being in positive territory this year, even after we do the aftercare restoration liability upgrade. We're just looking at that, but I'm still cautiously optimistic we'll be in positive territory. And whether we are at the level we were last year will depend on what the outcome of the aftercare liability exercise is. That's what we're looking at the moment. I think the big uncertain for us at the moment is the resource and waste strategy. The more we look into that, the more we're sort of trying to work out what is what's going to be the impact, not just on us, but what's also going to be the impact on the authorities. So, for example, approximately 8% of the value that you get from your recycling rebates is derives from plastic and aluminium cans, right? Which are the two things they want to take out of the stream and have you take back via the supermarkets to get your deposits back. What that therefore means is the supermarket's going to have the very high level, very high value PET and aluminium cans coming in, and you'll probably still have to go around the houses collecting cardboard and cans. There seems to be something that doesn't quite stack up from a sort of finance perspective there. But having said that, the recent changes in government, I guess the question is will the resource and waste strategy come to fruition in the current Parliament, or will it sort of be delayed into the next one? And in which case there's a lot of uncertainty about what will be the final outcome of that. I think that's everything from me.
That's brilliant, Sandy, and thank you. And it is such a delight to see where Yorwaste have moved over the last 4 years since we've been involved with yourselves. The fact that you've got the good business charter is fantastic. The economics and the business finances behind it, that, you know, I get regular updates from Patrick as well, is working really, really well. In terms of the waste strategy, we were discussing that earlier today, and the general consensus at the moment is exactly what you said. It's going to get either parked or moved on, because just to collect food waste within England is over £200 million investment. The likelihood, if the mood music, listening to what came out in what became a non-mini budget, is that you can't afford it.
Yeah.
So therefore, what will we do? And I do some work with Reckitt, who are the people who are involved with all the industries to do with owner responsibility or producer responsibility. None of that is tied down yet.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what time scale it will come out. It'll come, but I'm just not sure from the understanding I have what the time scale will be. In terms of where you've gone and what you've done, I just had a couple of questions, but you've answered most of them, which which is fantastic. So the one that really jumps out, and we've got a meeting later this week on the local energy area plan. It's how can we use that, or how can we support you in getting you connected to the grid? We've talked about it for 18 months. You guys came up with the plan, you sorted it, you organised it. Who do we need to bring a group together to see if we can leverage that? What would your advice be in how we support you? Because it's such a good idea.
I mean, I think sort of the first and foremost is to get the planning in place. So we're submitting the pre-application this month. We will then sort of take the feedback from that and put in the full submission. And then at the very least, we then need to start looking about how we can then maximise that if we have to do it off-grid. And options are, Yorwaste has got an on-site requirement. That's stage number one. Stage number two is by the time we would start to look to do that, we're currently exporting electricity via the landfill gas generation. That, as it comes to an end, will create spare capacity on those lines. There might be some scope for some limited exports using that in a sort of 3 to 5 year timescale. And then the other one on top of that one is hydrogen. But I understand that sort of Shell is almost coming out of the market for hydrogen in the UK. So it hasn't quite reached that critical mass. Having said that, it's still probably more suitable for things like RCVs and bulk haulage vehicles than electrics are. So I think it's one of these things that we'll continue to keep under review. In terms of...
I'm going to cut you off there. I was going to be much more simplistic than that. Do we need to get whoever is the director within CYC, whoever is the relevant councillor and Northern Power Grid in a room and just ask them why? I was being much more simplistic. I know there's lots of other things we could be doing.
I think what would be helpful is
works in Aberdeen, and the electric's not quite good enough for the big vehicles that are going distances.
What we could probably do is we should give you a proper background as to where we've got to today and what we understand the position to be, because one of the challenges that we've had is actually getting the right person to tell us whether our understanding is correct or not. It seems to be that sort of people are either on holiday, busy, or that's not the right person.
Okay, when could you get that document to me?
I can do that fairly quickly for you.
Fantastic. As soon as you do that, we'll pull the right people together and see how we support you in doing that, because that's just sensible.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the other things that you might want to give some thought to is there's an opportunity to do even more than the original 28 megawatts, get this right, megawatt, gigawatt, whichever particular watts it were. There is an option for another sort of 4 or so as well, if you wanted to go down wind. Now, whenever you say onshore wind, people start to sort of get a little bit concerned. Having said that, if that is a desire, then we probably need to start thinking about whether we want to include that within the scoping exercise. At the moment, it has been kept out of the scoping exercise for the sort of sensitivity and it can't be taller than York Minster sort of debate. But it's one of the things that we need to give some thought to. And I think if you have a position as an authority and as a council, that would be useful to sort of feed that back, because if it's a desire, then we can start to include that into the spec.
I would do it the other way around. If you can pull something together quite quickly and explain what the benefits are, then we can have the debate, and it will allow that conversation to happen with some facts around it, so that it crystallises the conversation.
We can do that.
The only other question I had was, what's your understanding of what the North York reorganisation, is there going to be an impact on Yorwaste?
Yeah, we've not been kept in, or we're not in scope in the current exercise that they're going through at the moment, speccing out the new council. And to the best of my knowledge, I think the original plan, the plan for the first couple of years, specifically within the waste, is a steady ship. You know, no dramatic changes. I think it will be evolution rather than revolution. So I'm not expecting any significant impact in the sort of 2 to 3 year timescale, if at all. So
fabulous. I've got no further questions. Andy?
Just sort of following on the conversation, I would very much welcome in your report, page 23, there's reference to the PV that you've already installed in Northampton.
On the head office. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's turned out to be
that's obviously
a very good investment.
very valuable progress.
And we're looking to do similar small scale installations on other buildings that we own. So
And I was just going to say, in relation to the previous conversation, I'm aware that obviously Harewood Wind, yeah, you say you've been trying to look at the national grid connection. I'm aware there's some work planned by Northern Power Grid linking across the north of the city, but whether it's worth also exploring sort of how it might work with British Sugar Site and York Central, which are all quite close, geographically to where your Harewood Wind based. So
Which is why the local energy area plan,
yeah,
which we've got it's out this week, so that we can all start having a look at it and see where we need to put the different connections in. But yours is a fair specific one, and then it might work because of all the other bits that are coming along, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's me just thinking out loud.
Well, I mean, one of the things there's always the option of private wire, but I don't think there's enough of an uptake in that area for private wire. One thing you may want to do for Poppleton is you could take a private wire into there if you were taking it to the Poppleton grid. You just run them alongside each other. But when you start to look at that, why would you do that when you can just pop up into the grid and drag it back down again?
Let's not craft a solution around this table, because I'm certainly not expert in it. Andy, any other questions? Claire?
Thanks, and thanks for that, Sandy. It was really informative. Glad to see you've joined the Good Business Charter, and just as part of that commitment, there's also the real living wage commitment within that, and that pushes through into supply chain as well, doesn't it? I just wondered if you've thought about how you'll encourage your supply chain to take up the real living wage, if you've thought about that yet?
Yeah, I mean, where we go for direct procurement, i.e. not via a sort of framework, we're putting that in for contracts over a particular value. We're expecting people to sort of honor that. And also that would come along with the commitments to modern slavery, etc. So.
Okay, just as a follow-up to that then, so the real living wage gives a cut-off date for May for the implementation of the £10.90 an hour rate. And I'm just wondering, Andy and I were at the cost of living crisis summit that the council held this morning. And I think that we should be considering in our organisations implementing the real living wage earlier than that May cut-off date. And whether there's financial modelling that can be done around that, because that will absolutely have a positive impact for workers in the city, which would be good.
We have got a plan in place. Probably wouldn't want to sort of say too much at the moment until we announce it to the staff, but we have a plan for doing an interim adjustment, so that we don't have to wait until May. And I think that's in recognition of the fact that it's hitting a lot of people in the pocket. And with a big caveat on that one is we need to be able to fund it within the current year. And at the moment, I think we are looking more and more positive with each month that goes past being able to do that. So we were looking to do something in advance of May, but I'd rather sort of not go into too much detail if you don't mind at this moment in time.
Great, thank you. And then just finally, Allerton Waste Recovery Park. Can I ask you to tell us a bit about what is going on there at the moment? And I saw the reports that the recovery of energy from food waste is struggling a bit. I'm just wondering what you're looking at as far as performance goes there.
It's not really within my scope, and it's probably would be inappropriate for me to comment on any of the details, given that it's a different investment from the, it's like I wouldn't comment on Veritau's performance. I can't really comment on Allerton Park. What I would sort of say is that a lot of its earlier troubles that we had with it in terms of delivery are now sort of well under control. It is more consistent in its operation than it has been, and the volumes that are processing are on the increase. So I think that the underlying picture is probably more positive than perhaps some of the press sort of would indicate. I think the other thing that needs to be recognised is that when some of those targets were set, that was some 10, 15 years ago. And I think the world has changed quite considerably since then, including the composition of waste. So I think it's it's something which the authority is looking at on a sort of basis, and if there was more detail, it would need to come from them, I think.
That's lovely. Sandy, you're more than welcome to stay if you want, but you're also more than welcome to leave. Many thanks.
I think I
You've
want
got
to
to
get
go and do
home
your
before the witches
trick-or-treating.
come out tonight. So
Yeah, got to go and do your trick-or-treating.
thank you.
Thank you ever so much. Oh, no, actually, is it? I think it's this way. Yeah, sorry. We have to push that door really hard. Thank you. Max, welcome to the table. You know what you're doing. We've been here before, so if you'd like to give an update on your report, we will have all read it.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just summarise a few points really. On the positive side, in the last 4 months, we have expanded our client base quite considerably. We've gained a number of new contracts and taken on some other ad hoc work. Perhaps on the less positive side, recruitment and retention does remain an issue. I think I've talked about this previously. We are struggling to hold on to our best staff, so our sort of qualified, experienced staff. Keeping hold of them is an ongoing challenge. So to try and mitigate that, we are continuing to recruit trainees to support professional development within the business. So people who join as trainees have a clear career path to sort of more senior leadership positions, and that's really the main aim of that, is to hold on to that sort of core capacity within the business, so that we can continue to provide services not only to our existing member councils but also to our external clients. I have provided some further details of the sort of some of the success stories in terms of people sort of gaining sort of leadership roles and qualifying. In terms of our 21-22 accounts, they have been approved and the audit of those is now complete. The auditors didn't identify any significant issues. There were no major adjustments required. So at some point soon, they will be filed with Companies House. In terms of this year's accounts, we are pretty much on track. The 2 areas where there's going to be changes as we head to the end of the year. The first is our external income will be more than we expected as a result of gaining the additional work, but our payroll costs will equally be more than we were expecting. And that's principally because we allowed a 3% pay award, and we have agreed a pay award for this year, but it is based on the national agreement, which is currently going through, but effectively is going to be significantly more. So that is going to hit our bottom line. So we are currently expecting to roughly break even for the year. I suppose just a couple of other noticeable things. We have retained our Investors in People accreditation, and following the last meeting, we have also signed up for the Good Business Charter, and we are currently working our way through that, and we hope to complete that work by the end of the year. Happy to take questions.
Okay, many thanks for that. And you've taken my first question. Were you signed up for the Good Business Charter? So that's good to see and good to hear. And I'm sure that Claire will ask how soon you can make the pay rise. So when we get to that question, if you can have a think about that in between time. What you were saying goes as well to one of the questions that I was going to ask you, which is the cost of delivering is actually more or less the same as the cost of the revenue of you bringing in. So it is going to break even. It's not going to be in surplus at the end of the year. Is that what was the accounts in front of me don't really say that?
The figures in the covering report obviously refer to last year. The current year's accounts, management accounts, which are one of the confidential annexes, we are expecting to break even, and that's basically because we are going to be paying more than we expected, and whilst our income is going to be more, that's going to be offset by that quite significant uplift in payroll cost.
Okay, the only other question I had was, do you have a sustainability policy?
We do.
Could you send it to me? Because I know it was referred to in here, but I've never seen it.
Yes,
So if we could just have a look, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, we certainly do.
Okay, that was all that was from me.
Yeah, I would be interested to know your thoughts on implementing the real living wage increment earlier than the May date. And secondly, just out of interest, how do you pay for your energy? And are you seeing significant rises in your energy cost as a business?
Okay, in terms of the real living wage, none of our staff were paid less than the real living wage, either before the uplift or since. Having said that, our pay scale did go below the real living wage. So in theory, if we'd appointed someone at the lowest grade, they would have been below the real living wage. What we have done is we've negotiated a change to our pay scale. So basically uplifted the lowest grade, so it's now above. So none of our staff are paid less than the real living wage, and even if we recruit someone, they will be paid more than the real living wage. So we've already done that. And in terms of the pay award, we have already negotiated and agreed the pay award. So we've implemented that, so all the staff have now received that with a back date to the 1st of April. In terms of energy, we don't, well, apart from one small office we have at the Eco Centre, all our offices are located within council buildings. So we have an office in this building, we have an office up at North Yorkshire County Hall. So we're not responsible for energy payments ourselves. We are reliant on our host councils putting the proper arrangements in place.
No, that's excellent, Max. Thank you ever so much. And again, really clear. So thank you. Again, you're more than welcome to stay, or you can go trick-or-treating. Okay, the next one, Aaron. So you can both come. I just wasn't sure how you wish to play it. Absolutely, both of you to the table. Okay, so welcome.
Thank you.
And if you want to assume we've read it all,
Okay.
and if you want to give us an update, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. So you will have received our accounts for 2021-22, which unfortunately weren't ready for either of the previous two meetings this year. The meeting in March, we haven't finished year end, and the June meeting, they hadn't been audited. So it's the first time that we've been able to produce them to you. They are about to be filed with the Companies House. There were a couple of adjustments to the draft accounts that you saw previously as a result of some valuation changes in the local government pension scheme, of which a very small number of the staff employed by the company are members. The rest of the staff are members of Nest pension scheme. So those were the small adjustments that were made. The board, I'm pleased to say, agreed the shareholders' dividend at last week's meeting, and we'll be paying the council £135,000 from the profits from last year. So that's good news, hopefully. Okay. So a lot of work's being done on the sustainability side of things, both from the point of view of producing policy, but also because we're Crown Commercial Services suppliers, we were asked to produce a carbon reduction plan for them, which had to be signed and agreed. It's been a bit of a challenge because we were baselining on last year where we were in a small office and mostly working from home. This year we've moved to a bigger office and we're mostly working from the office. So we know that inevitably this year we're probably going to be higher than last year. But we're doing what we can to try and reduce emissions. We're doing a lot of work with staff around sustainable transport to work, if possible. We're looking at salary sacrifice schemes. Also looking at an option to support them in taking holidays that are not using aeroplanes. So it's something called climate perks, where you can give people an extra day's holiday either end of their holiday to travel not by aeroplane but by train or boat or walk if they feel like it, if it's a short distance, but overseas travel, so that they're saving time from work because they're not taking extra holiday and wasting that. We're supporting them and doing that. We're also looking at work with the partnership between the university and the North Yorkshire LEP, we've signed up to them to get further advice and assistance on our sustainability. We're a little bit limited in the building that we have because we rent it, we don't own it. But the work was done in refurbishing the building to put in LED lighting and a new boiler and new fridges. And so we're kind of about as carbon friendly as we can be in an old building that is a listed building. We can't do a lot to. The Good Business Charter, I've had a lot of conversations with the Good Business Charter people, because I had an initial query about whether our temporary staff counted towards our staff count. And there was a query about whether we counted as a small business or a large business as to whether those people were taken into account. Also, whether the temp staff that we provide, not to the council, but to other clients, had to be paid the real living wage in order for us to be real living wage certified. I've had informal advice from them on that, but I'm waiting for the formal advice before we put in our final application, depending on which side of the fence they land with their actual advice once it's been through their panel. So there were various questions, and they said they had actually been in touch with the Recruitment and Employment Confederation about both of these issues because they'd had similar queries from other recruiters. So I think it's something that they're going to have to put some sensible guidance really to organisations that employ staff, i.e. pay staff, but they're working elsewhere and their pay rates are determined by other organisations. That's the issue that we have. In terms of our finances for this year, you'll see those in the confidential documents. We're a little bit behind the curve in terms of our forecast, but we are expected to make a profit at the end of the year. There have been some changes within City of York in terms of their intention to reduce their agency spend, obviously needing to save money this year. And we've spoken to them as well about moving across some of their off-contract spend to us. I'm pleased to say that today we've managed to get one of those agencies to sign up to us on contract, so we will be transferring those people across, but there's quite a big bit of work to do on that. We've also spent quite a lot of time in the last couple of weeks talking to managers about changes of forms within the City of York, so it will be really helpful once they are up to speed with the new processes. I don't know if any of you have got any questions on any of that before I discuss any more.
Just thank you again, a good clear report and easy to follow. Okay. I had a couple of questions. So in terms of your sustainability plan, the big one when we've discussed it previously is transport, how you get people to you, from you, to work, from work. And I know that you're putting a lot of work into that. So take the positives, don't beat yourself up about the building that is now refurbished, that you've got the water supplies in, that so nobody's using the bottles, that you've got it as close as you can, as far as you can. The big step is to see how you can get people to travel to and from. Because I bet if you did a calculation about them working from home and each home heating itself and each doing this, that and the other versus this year, it's not going to be too far different if especially if you can use public transport or shared cars or bikes or walk or
Yeah.
whatever else. So try and focus on that bit. And I know there's some case studies that we might be able to help with that, certainly
Okay.
from Sean's area and from my experience, there's things that we can help you with. So take the
Okay.
positives.
Yeah,
rather than-
absolutely.
don't let perfect get in the way of good. Take the positives. The question I'd also like to ask is the pension that you mentioned.
Mhm.
It would be interesting to know where those pension pots are actually investing their money, because there's a significant amount of pressure now from everybody
Yeah,
saying,
absolutely.
could you invest them in a more sustainable manner? And because the returns are better, it's being moved.
Mhm.
So it would be just,
Yeah,
I'm not asking you
absolutely.
to
That's
answer
something
now.
we can certainly ask our pension providers. Yeah, certainly commit to do that. Yeah.
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 And then you mentioned the forms and training the guys here, and I know we've had a conversation about that. So thank you for your support
Mhm.
and what you've been doing there. But also what I've picked up is that the forms aren't simple, straightforward. I don't know whether that's our responsibility, your responsibility, somebody in the middle. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
How do we support that process to make it easier all round? What do we as a collective need to do between ourselves to improve that?
I think the forms could be more straightforward. I think they should probably have drop-down menus, mostly with a little bit of free type, but insist that the free type section is completed, because that's the bit that often gets left out. But I think the clear thing is some training, as in, albeit a video, you know, this is how you fill in the form. And somebody showing how
so Rodners do it
works.
again. Rodners do it around this table. Could
Yeah.
you do me a favour? Could you just send me a simple 3 or 4 sentences, nothing more, simple 3 or 4 sentences before the end of the week, and let me see how I get the right people together to just get that to happen, because that's sensible.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Andy?
I firstly wanted to congratulate you on the fantastic building. I know you personally weren't responsible for its refurbishment, but clearly there was quite strong influence in terms of designing an attractive and modern appearance in a listed building is quite important. It does send that clear message about a professional organisation, both for your staff and for your customers. So I think that's really welcome to see. And again, also welcome the points you made about trying to focus on staff travel and looking at the various options that there are to mitigate that impact. And I think particularly for an organisation such as yourself, where you're recruiting not just for City of York Council, but other organisations as well, schools and so on, it's really important if you can demonstrate good practice that is then sort of percolates through to other organisations in the city. If you can car share or cycle or whatever it might be, then that is good practice that can be shared with other organisations. So very much welcome that as well.
Thank you.
Clyde, any questions?
Thanks. You may have seen that the anti-racist city strategy was launched on last Thursday. Equality and Inclusive Rights UK 3.0. And I'm just wondering what analysis of your workforce you do on a diversity basis, and if you've got a strategy for improving the diversity there, because I imagine, like most organisations in York, you likely need to do that. So an update on that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do have analysis levels in the application process, a confidential equal opportunities monitoring form that we keep, so we are able to report on that. Yes, we need to be more diverse. In terms of recent wins, I think we have recruited a large number of Ukrainian refugees who are working with us both in schools and elsewhere. So that's been really positive in working with both the council and the job centre to attend recruitment fairs, to do mini events specifically for that group of staff. So that's been really helpful. But yes, we need to look at where we're advertising, making sure that we are not just online, that we're giving simple, easy to use application forms to people that they can easily fill in and are available in different languages as well. So we're conscious of that. But we are a York-based agency, so it's who's in York, isn't it, as much as anything else.
Thanks. And it's not just about the people that you recruit through the recruitment agencies, it's about your internal staff as well.
Absolutely.
Because the analysis of data has shown that it's really hard for people from ethnic minorities to get management or senior level roles, and they generally end up with a lower median wage than non-ethnic minority groups. So what do you do around your recruitment when you're looking for new staff that sit within your office and your permanent staff?
We are quite a small organisation. We're 20 people altogether. We have one black member of staff of those 20 currently. So that's more than we had a year ago. It's not good enough. We don't recruit very often. This year we have recruited two other people, but our staff tend to stay with us for a length of time. So we're not, luckily as recruiters, we don't have to do a lot of our own recruitment. But I guess we need to make it clear that we're equal opportunities employers. I guess the pictures that we have on the website, we always are very conscious of making sure that those are appropriately diverse ranges of people, so it's clear that we're not, we aren't a kind of white ghetto in that sense. We do as much as we can, but we've got to wait for people we have to ensure that we give people the opportunity to apply clearly, but if they don't apply, it's hard to appoint them.
So I'm just going to come in here because I think that is a slightly different, separate debate to this, which we can take outside of the room and we can ask for more information. But from what I see inside your organisation is when I've looked at the literature, when I've looked at the website, it seems fairly balanced for male, for female, for age, for colour. It seems that way to me, and I'm assuming as a recruiter you've got that hardwired into your network. But I would be interested in having the debate outside of this room. I think for an update on where the business is, I think we might take that offline and do that another time.
Happy to do
Is that okay? Any further questions, Claire?
And then I think there's another debate to be had as well about a council-owned recruitment company taking on jobs that don't pay the real living wage when we are a real living wage employer. And I can understand the tensions on that, but I think if we are to be promoting real living wage across the city, then we should be doing that in every way we can. So I don't expect you to answer me on that. It's not really a question, but it's a thought.
I hear what you say. At one point, the company were a living wage employer and promoted ourselves as that. The board took a decision before I was a member of the board that in order to engage with as many different employers around York, that we would actively move away from that. Whether that was the right decision, I'm not sure. I guess if we are limiting ourselves to real living wage employers, then the council will need to be happy that the return that they get from the work that we do externally is sufficient to justify that decision.
Again, I'm going to cut across here. I think that is a big debate, and I think it does need discussing for all sorts of different reasons, from the cost of living to the fact that how we wish people to be treated. And I don't think this is the forum to have that debate without your board engaged. And when the board took that decision, there would have been a series of circumstances for that. Life's moved on. So I think that it's now probably time to have the same discussion again around your board table and at some point in the next few months, come back with what your considered opinion is.
Mhm.
But I really don't want that debate in public around this table, because that's for your board to decide and then for the council to agree or disagree.
Okay. I will say that we have one
So
living wage employee, direct employee, and her pay has been increased from the 1st of November.
thank you. Any further questions? No? Many thanks. I'm not going to do the trick or treat again. Okay, and Sarah, thank you ever so much for sitting quietly at the back, which is the quietest I think I've ever known you. So you've seen the three before you. If you want to assume we've read it all. Okay, and if you want to give us an update, and then I'm sure we'll all have a few questions.
I know you've all read the report, so I was just going to highlight a few things. We need to turn the mic off. Sorry. Yes.
There we go. I know, so I'd just like to highlight a few things really, because the report sets out the activity that we've done over the last 6 months and our budgetary position. In terms of governance, we're asking that we can recruit 3 board members. Up until now, our board didn't feel it was fair to increase the numbers on the board because of the situation that Make It York is in. But now we feel that we're in a stronger position. We want that expertise around the table to move forward. So we've been doing quite a lot of work around recruiting those 3 board members and making sure that we get the right people. We've also going to be establishing a members advisory board in the future. We've listened to our members and we feel that we need to engage more with the members to test out ideas, what we're planning in the future, and to make sure that we do the right things for our members. So that's gone live. Really good at the moment. We've had over 72 people apply for more information about coming on that advisory group. So this shows that there's strong appetite out there and a lot of support for us to get engaged and help us deliver our agenda. As you'll be aware, there's a number of people who have left the organisation in the past year. It's always sad to see people go, but it's also an opportunity. So what we've been able to do is look at where we need the skills within the organisation. So we've had, a small restructure, and there'll be a number of posts advertised shortly, if not this week. They will be advertised transparently and openly. They will be advertised on council website, Make It York website, and Indeed as well. And we want people to post those and push them out as far as possible so that we get the right people in post. And there's quite a diverse range of skills that we're looking for, so that we can move the organisation forward. So we see that as a really positive move. We've also strengthened our financial management. You'll be aware that we tender everything in line with the local authorities procedures now. So everything has been tendered. We follow all the council's procedures in terms of getting 3 quotes for anything under 5,000, so that we're all open and transparent, and that is proving to make a big difference to how the organisation is run, and also for managers managing expenditure as well as income. So we think that we've moved really a long way in terms of our governance and financial probity. We are sharing more information with Patrick and Andrew in relation to our finances and our monthly accounts as well, so that they can interrogate us and question us on a regular basis, which is healthy for me as well. In terms of our business performance, we've had some really, really good results in the past 6 months. I was able to share at our stakeholders event last week that our social media now is up to 10 million people viewing, which is absolutely fantastic. That's 10 million people knowing how brilliant York is. So that's good news. We've run 4 campaigns over the summer. Again, getting lots of attraction from people wanting to come to York, although visitor numbers are down. The average spend is staying about the same, but the main issue for us is international visitors that aren't returning, but we're not as bad as London, so that's good news as well. And on that point, we do get more engagement than Visit London and Visit Edinburgh and Visit Glasgow. So we're doing
Not that you're
something right.
competitive.
Pardon?
Not that you're competitive.
Not at all, no. We're going to run another five more campaigns this year that are planned, working with our partners, and we're really focusing on the international campaigns. So we're going to the World Travel Market and we're sharing that stand with Visit Leeds, and we've had a lot of support from local businesses, and that takes place next week. Our membership retention is down by 6%. But we've had the best year for new membership since the start of Visit York. So that's kind of tells me we are doing something right. I think the membership retention is down just because of the cost of living. It's not the service we're providing. We've held 7 major events since April. So I would challenge people to find another city that's done that. We've had some really good results in terms of resident engagement in those events. The Ice Trail, in fact, had 40% of the visitors were local people, which I think was really good. We've got 6 more planned until March, and we really are going to push the resident engagement in those events. And this year, every single stall at the Christmas market is offering a discount to York residents who can prove that they are a York resident, and the discounts are very good, from 5% to 30%. So I think that hopefully will encourage residents to participate. We've carried out standardisation in the markets, working really closely with the market traders, and we've recently undertaken an interim rent reduction pending a full rent review, because we recognise that the cost of living crisis has had a massive impact on our traders. So we've had some really positive engagement with them and put in an interim rent reduction, and we will find those resources elsewhere. We've also established the first cultural executive in the UK. So we're the first to do that, and there are now 160 members on our cultural forum. So we are delivering against the SLA. Budget-wise, we've had our audited accounts for 2021-22, which you've got a copy. There was a loss there, but that was mainly through a deferred tax on pensions from the previous year, which caused that deficit. We always predicted that there would be a deficit this year, primarily because we agreed to keep the Tourist Information Centre open and to continue to provide resource for the Christmas lights and also invest in the cultural sector. So we were always clear. We've been open and transparent because we're estimating a higher deficit than we did in the business plan, and that's purely down to cost of living, increases and some of the things that we didn't foresee back in January. We are going to try and bring that down. We have a few ideas on how we might bring that down, but we are being very cautious in the next 6 months, primarily because we don't know what direction of travel is. And if I had a crystal ball, I'd be a rich lady, because I don't think many people know which direction of travel some areas of cost are going to go through. And we don't have much wriggle room within the organisation at the moment. However, we are predicting a better case scenario for 23-24 because of all the things that we've put in place now. We should come through next year. So one of the biggest costs for us was the office where we were based. It was too big, too costly. We are moving. It has taken a little bit longer, but that move will reduce our costs dramatically, as well as putting in better procedures in our finances and accounting and better budget management. And also through our tendering process, we've been able to go out and get 2-year contracts with a possibility of an extension of a third, depending on the SLA with the local authorities. So we're much more certain about what we can predict in the following year. This year was always going to be tough, and having global issues layered on top of what would be a tough year for us. I think, we're managing this, and we are managing very, very tightly at the moment. You will see that the first 3 quarters of this year look better than perhaps the last year, but that's because all our income comes in the first 3 years. So over time, we'd like to kind of get rid of that hockey stick scenario and kind of look at how we can generate more income in that last quarter to make us more sustainable going forward. And that's what we're looking at. Sponsorship income is down this year, which is causing an issue with the budget. It's just many businesses are struggling at the moment, and the sponsorship is the nice to do rather than what they normally do. Cost of print has been high as well, so we're looking at different publications of what we might be able to do in the future rather than things that actually cost us too much to create. And perhaps might not give the return on investment that members want us to. That's from me. Any questions?
Okay, I've got a few questions and
Okay.
comments. First of all, having read your business plan and listened to how you've spoken then, it's fabulous to see how much front and centre you've put the residents. It's really, really good. And the fact that you've negotiated 5 to 30% discounts, we need to be singing that from the hilltops to make sure all the residents for the 6 weeks of that market know it and know that it's for them as well as all of our visitors. On our visitors support our economy that we all benefit from. So cracking job hearing that. Bit that you've done a little bit of your light under your bushel. Are you going to tell everybody around this table about the sustainable plastic-free Christmas market?
Oh yes, yeah.
Come on.
We've banned single-use plastic in the Christmas market this year. Be the first time we've built in sustainability into all of our contracts. We will be policing it. We've also stressed that we have the green generators that are seen as green generators by local authorities. So we're real push for sustainability. We're also going to be selling some recycled cups at the Visitor Information Centre so people can reuse them when they go and get their mulled wine at the Christmas market. So we've got lots of plans in the future to really kind of green up the market, both Shambles market and markets that we do in the future.
Perfect. And we need to make a lot of noise about that because is the York Christmas market one of the largest Christmas markets in the UK?
Yeah, well, we're one of the best Christmas market in the UK and one of the largest. I mean, Manchester did ban single-use plastic in 2018. I don't know whether that's still continued. I'd like to maybe
don't think it did because I went to it and it was there.
Yeah. So yes,
we really need to make a song and dance. I mean, that is such a big change because it helps put the message right. So what you have done, and with the help of all the councillors and the officers, what that achieves is you can have a cracking time, you can have just as good an experience, it can all work. The work's been done behind the scenes to make it as sustainable as possible. So I just think that is such a good story, such a good thing to be thinking about, and we really need to celebrate that and push it out. So thank you for making that happen. And you answered my next question, which was, so are all the markets going plastic free? But you said, yes, my next step is moving to the Shambles market.
Yeah, we have a green plan for the Shambles market. In fact, we submitted a bid for £50,000 to green up the the Shambles market. Unfortunately, we weren't successful, but we've got the plan, so we will be pursuing other lines to be able to introduce some of the activity that we want to do to make the Shambles even more sustainable.
Okay, fabulous. And my last question is, do you have the Good Business Charter?
Yes, we gained it in June following the last meeting here. So we have the Good Business Charter, plus we're encouraging all our members to take on board the Good Business Charter.
And just one final point for clarification, because I was checking it. When was I checking it? Wednesday or Thursday last week with Ian Cunningham, who does all of our business numbers. So for York, the numbers per month are fractionally down. And I mean, fractionally, it's in the low tens of thousands down. The spend is up. So it's all coming back up to where we want it. And when he was plotting the numbers for me, you can see that the numbers of visitors to our city are climbing, and we're down at about 8 million instead of 8.2 million.
Yeah.
That's the running rate, and it's climbing. So the work that you're doing is making sure that everybody's having a really good time in the city. So thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any further questions. Andy?
Well, I'd certainly congratulate you on the very detailed report, and on page 167 and 168, clear evidence, as you said, about visitor numbers. And I think are these numbers for the visitors information centre as opposed to wider than that. So I mean, clearly that is a good news. And also on that last point about reusable cups, certainly congratulate you on achieving that over I think it was probably about 2018, we had a council motion, we put an amendment which was carried to try and secure a York cup, which would be reusable rather than having single-use plastics. And so I very much welcome that. And if we can get some with the council crest on or something, well, that would be even better still. On a more sort of serious note, I was going to just ask on the recommendations. I appreciate the actual details in the confidential annex, but there is the appointment of 3 new non-executive directors. That's obviously to the board. Do you have, I'm just sort of thinking about the sort of decisions that you have or the board will have to make. Do you have a sort of standard protocols such as we do in terms of declarations of interests and that sort of thing? So if there was a new director that had a conflict of interest, that would be clarified and appropriate.
Yes, we had a big
exclusion
decision,
from the
we
meeting
had
or
a big
whatever.
discussion about it at the last board meeting. So
Alright.
yes,
Okay, thank you. So just wanted to be reassured that you have got that sort of protocol in place, because I'm sure that there will be some decisions that have to be made where there is that. You obviously want the expertise, I can see, but equally you want to make sure that there's that transparency about how the decision's made.
Yeah.
Okay, I think those are the 2 points I want to make. But
Thanks, Sarah, and some really interesting work, and I know it's been a big job for you as well, so thanks for that. I'm just interested in the Good Business Charter a bit more about that. For a start, do you pay anybody at the real living wage or below at this point? Do you pay it at? Do you pay people at?
Sarah.
come off. Oh, I think they're above.
Okay. So I'm just would like to encourage you to have a look at that and then consider if people are being paid at the real living wage, that they get that pay increase earlier than the May date due to the
Just for
cost of
clarity
living.
there, Sarah, you just said that everybody's above
At the moment,
living
yes.
wage. Yes, so
Yeah.
they're already there,
Yeah.
Claire. So all Make It York, they're already above the real living wage. Yeah.
1090,
Colin?
above 1090.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great, thanks. So part of the the Good Business Charter as well is pushing some of these standards down through the supply chain. And I'm just wondering if you're attempting to do that with some of your suppliers. And then also out of the cost of living crisis summit this morning came the sense that we should all be encouraging our anchor institutions, which you would be considered to be one, to buy locally from small businesses. And I'm just wondering what you're doing around your supply chain, supporting small and independent businesses to participate with Make It York. Thanks.
We've always had a policy to look at members of our organisation that are local to see whether or not they, can supply goods and services to us. So we've always had that policy in place, and we will look, even further to how we can do that. And I actually got given an idea from a previous, person who sat here earlier today about looking at how we can put that in our tenders as well to encourage that we do, source locally, because it's also good for the environment. Some of the winter foot or I don't know how people are pronouncing it, but some of the food there is being supplied in Yorkshire, from Yorkshire, so that we keep those, you know, food miles down as well. So it is high on our agenda.
And then I noticed that, and you told me about this previously, that you're trying to stop competition between Christmas market and Shambles market traders. I just wondered if you could give us an update on how that process is going for you.
Well, I hope it's going really well. We've been working really, really closely, you know, with the traders, because the Shambles market is unique. We know that we've had a huge increase in visitors that visit the Shambles market. We want to protect it. We look after the market charter. We want more engagement. We need to perhaps next year look more closely at the commodities that are for sale at the Christmas market in comparison to the Shambles market, which we will do in partnership with the Shambles traders, because people want a mix. They don't want to come somewhere where everything's the same. And also we want to encourage people to move from the Christmas market into the Shambles market. So we've had a look at signage. I think I've brought some guides here that we've produced, quite clearly marked this time Shambles market. So we're trying to make the Shambles market integrate into the Christmas market as well, because it's one market for people to come and celebrate. So doing a lot of work, because it's a jewel in the crown, really, the Shambles market. And, you know, we want it to be sustainable.
And just to for clarity, so this year there will be some crossover of products sold on the Shambles market and in the Christmas market. You've not quite reached that point where you've managed to eradicate that.
We'll never eradicate it, but it's getting the right mix and the right level of crossover. It's perhaps not the right level that I would like at the moment, but next year it certainly will, because we need to have that dialogue with the Shambles market. We get more people who want to come to the Christmas market. So we're in a lucky position whereby we can kind of look at different commodities and make it interesting also for people who visit and residents, that we're providing, you know, the right goods that they want to buy as well. And that's getting the mix absolutely right. We can always do better. We'll never get it 100% right, but we can always do better. And that's the aim.
Okay, many thanks. There aren't any other questions, but we've got a recommendation. Looking at the three candidates, I am more than happy to support the recommendation. I think they are three very strong candidates that will really, really support Make It York going even further and faster than they already are. So we're happy with that recommendation, Andy?
And with the provisos, as I said, I'm happy with approving that recommendation.
Yeah. Okay. Do I need to say it any other way, Dan? Because I always get the words wrong.
No.
Yes, it's only taken 3.5 years. Okay, Sarah, many thanks. The work plan, I don't have any comments on. No. Is there any urgent business? No. Okay, well, I'll go back and do your trick-or-treating. Many thanks for watching.